Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about The Alienist Season 1, Episode 3, The Silver Smile. I decided to skip the Episode 2, Fruitful Partnership, only because it's a good episode. I just don't feel like talking about it. I'll do it like in a rundown review. But I decided to review this one only because there's more development in like the characters. There's like more character development. We get to know some of these people's backstories briefly, not like majorly, but it's enough for you to understand a little bit of who they were before and stuff. But in the Fruitful Partnership, pretty much what happens is that they're still investigating the killer who killed the Molly boy. And so they found the fingerprint. This is back in those days when fingerprints were just now twin brothers like who are become like detectives and like coroners and people like that. They went around a butcher shop determining what type of knife was used for the murder weapon. And after trying several knives out on several different like pig heads, they was able to determine the type of knife that was used to cut out the eyes of the boy. It's very gruesome, and they showed them cutting like the pig's eye out. It's like a butchered like pig, but still is disgusting. And so they was able to determine like the knife and stuff, and they also deduced the whole fingerprint thing. Now during this episode, we find out that John is an alcoholic, and Laszlo insults him like he always does, and he gets so upset that he leaves the dinner that they're having, and he goes down to the brothel that the Molly house is at. And so he's going to do some investigating of his own, even though he's not a cop or a detective. He's just like a cartoonist. But he's really helpful and stuff like that. Well, he asked way too many questions. He wants to know who the client was that was who bought out the one boy that died. Well, nobody really wants to talk, especially the bartender. The bartender spikes his drink, and then one of the boys named Joseph, who goes by Sally, he takes John to a room to tell him stuff about what happened to the boy that died. But he doesn't really say much. He's very vague. He mostly just says something about some kids saw some things, and something about this man flies or something like that, but has no wings. And so this is kind of like weird. They're kind of like, well, how can he fly with no wings? Remember when I said Laszlo chased him to that building and he couldn't find him? All you saw was like the ceiling with a hole cut in it. And it's kind of like, well, how did he get up there, you know? And so, like, as he's now drugged, he's in and out of consciousness. And Sally keeps trying to, like, touch and feel on him and stuff, but he won't let him because, you know, John's not that way. And then some men walk in. One of them is Captain Connor, the Irish police captain dude who is now found out to be corrupt. He is working for a mobster by the name of, I believe it is, I think his name is Paul something. I'll say it in a rundown review, and stuff like that. But he's a real life mobster, from back in the day. And so like, they come in the room and they, you know, they're kind of upset that he's asking all these questions and stuff and talking about how he needs to drop this like investigation and stop like coming around that place and all this other stuff. And so then like they tell him they're gonna make sure he don't never tell nobody nothing. So then when he's drifting in and out of consciousness, one of the boys, I think Sally, like hops on him or something like that. Now it is implied that John was assaulted by one of those Molly boys and stuff. However, I don't think so. And that now gets us into the Silver Smile. The reason why I feel like he wasn't assaulted is because, oh, by the way, Sally tells John that, you know, whoever this person is has a silver smile. John has no idea what that means, and they won't elaborate because he really doesn't want to say much. So, Silver Smile, it starts where it left off. And John, he wakes up back at Laszlo's place, surrounded by his colleagues. He wants to know how he got there and everything. Well, Laszlo sent Stevie to follow John last night, but Stevie ended up like losing him, but found out that he went to one of those Molly houses. And so his colleagues wants to know, why did he go over there for? Because they know he likes to sleep around, but with women and stuff. And so John's implying that nothing like that happened. But the reason why I feel like he wasn't assaulted is because, okay, Stevie found him face down in the alley with his pants off. And so, like, when he woke and walked around, he walked around fine. Nothing was hurting him in the butt area. And normally, if you're assaulted back there and this is your first time, it's gonna hurt. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, the mobster dude and Captain Connor, they was like, the scene cuts to them and they're talking about like that cop, that not a cop, but like that cartoonist that was like snooping around and all this other stuff. And they said, like, you know, if he doesn't want to ruin his reputation, he'll keep his mouth shut. And then Captain Connor said, well, he'll be walking funny the next morning, but we don't see him walking funny the next morning to indicate like nothing really happened. I think what it is they just made it look like he went to like a Molly house, got himself some, and found himself face down in, like, you know, the alley with no pants on, to kind of like ruin his reputation. And so for him to keep his mouth shut, he doesn't want people to know that he was there, because, you know, if people found out you went to these places, it was really bad and stuff. And so that's why I think it was the assumption that he was, but he really wasn't, like, because they don't show it. And one reason why they probably didn't show it is because they probably didn't want to push that type of boundary. The show pushes enough as it is, with the murders of young boys, the eyes being ripped out, flesh being ripped out, male prostitution of little boys, and all this other stuff. They probably just didn't want to push that boundary. But like I said, I don't think he was. I just think they did that to set him up, to make him keep his mouth shut. Like, that's similar to what the mobster dude said and stuff. So I really don't think that he was. Now, in the last episode, we now find out that Mary has an attraction to Dr. Laszlo, and she's very jealous of Sarah. And then we find out in the other episode, The Fruitful Partnership, that Sarah confided in confidence to a friend of hers that she is attracted to that of a doctor. So, of course, that has to be Dr. Laszlo and stuff. Now, Dr. Laszlo in the second episode deduced that John might have an attraction to Sarah and everything. And John's all like, that's preposterous, because, you know, I knew her when she was younger and stuff. So in this episode, they are still trying to determine the dude who now is going by the Silver Smile. They are trying to figure out who he is and why he does what he does. So Dr. Laszlo, he goes to a friend of his. Now, his friend is a female dominatrix. And he goes to her because he needs to understand the nature of why a person will want to go to, say, like a Molly house or a brothel or get a streetwalker or something like that. He also needs to know the nature of why some people take up that perfection and everything. And so she explains to him the fruits of like labors in which they give, and how they do things that like somebody's spouse would like never do. And so he's really trying to get inside the psychology of this killer because he has no way to talk to this killer and stuff. Now, he doesn't ask John, hey, why do you go to like a brothel and everything? Because John doesn't like talking about it. And John gets very upset every time Laszlo brings it up. Laszlo loves to read people like a book. And he likes to tease John like a lot. It's something psychiatrists do all the time, I notice. They just can't help but to analyze people. And so Sarah, she has now determined, with the help of John, that there is a corrupt police officer within the force, and Theodore Roosevelt has no idea of it and stuff. John doesn't say who, because he was slipping in and out of consciousness, so he doesn't really know it's Connor and everything. But somebody falsified some documents that led up to one of the boys' murders and stuff. So now they know they cannot trust the police force, and they can't really let the police know that what they're investigating. And like, you know, when they're at a scene of a crime, they have to make sure they vacate like very fast and stuff. Now, one thing that is really interesting is that we learn about some of the people that work for Laszlo. Now, he has Stevie, this little ward, but nothing much is known about him. Cyrus, the black chauffeur, it turns out he once murdered a man. And so Laszlo is, because like I said before, Laszlo is desperately trying to figure out who this killer is. So he needs to know the nature of one. So he asked Cyrus straight up, do you remember killing the person and what did it feel like? And Cyrus just gives him this big, dramatic, deep dialogue of what it felt like. He still remembers the blood. He still remembers the way he used his hands and all this other stuff. And it's very gut-wrenching when you hear this stuff. And Laszlo just looks at him with just a straight stare as he's like taking everything into accountability. Then it turns out Mary has murdered someone as well. She is the Native American woman who is a mute that is his housemaid. See, in the last episode, when I said Mary has an attraction to Dr. Laszlo, she made it known by I think slamming something on a table when she was next to Sarah and everything. And so in this episode, something happens to where Laszlo gets really pissed at Mary. Basically, he comes home with his colleagues and she has set up the dinner table with everything, like all kind of food, right? And he did not want her there. And John says because he's trying to shield her of what's going on in the investigation. Because she set her father on fire multiple times and stuff, but was acquitted of murder and stuff. So yeah, he has employed people who has done some dangerous stuff, but she was acquitted. So who knows, but John says she did it, but like I said, who knows, you know what I'm saying? Now, as they're doing the whole investigation, Stevie alerts them that there has been another murder of a Molly boy. Now, remember in the end of the first episode, I said that there was a little boy and there was a grown man who spoke to him and everything. That was the killer, the Silver Smile killer. And so the boy has been left alive, even in the second episode and even in part of the third. And then in the third, he is then eventually murdered. They go and they find where this boy is at. It's not a water tower, I don't think. I believe it's the top of a roof. And so it's Sarah, it's John, and it's Laszlo. And they're examining the body. It's exactly the same way the other body was. Eyes ripped out, flesh ripped off in certain parts of the arm. It's the calling card of the Silver Smile killer. So Cyrus tells Stevie, keep a lookout for the police officers, and the moment they come, let them know so they can get out of there. And the reason for that is because there is a corrupt former police captain named Thomas Barnes. Now, he is based off a real life person, but I don't think the real Thomas Barnes was corrupt. Now, this Thomas Barnes in the show, he keeps out the rich and wealthy and the criminal people from being prosecuted. He prevents them from doing that. And so, as they're examining the body and everything, they are trying to determine is it the same type of calling card that the killer leaves behind? And it is. And then Sarah is Sarah, remember how I said Sarah is a very tough woman and everything? So she is letting out her vulnerable side. She cannot handle looking at this child's body. Now, she has seen dead people before, but she has never seen a person this dismembered before, and she cannot take it. So John tries to quell her and everything, and then she deduces that we're high up, and so was the boy on the bridge, and so was the boy on the water tower. She then tells Laszlo that this Silver Smile killer has an attraction to heights. For some reason, he loves to kill people on high up places and leave their bodies there. Now, what they don't know is that the killer is there the whole time in the building. He is unable to escape. and flee. But he's hiding down below and he can hear everything they're saying. And so one of the police officers, he goes and he alerts Captain Connor of what happened, that another Molly boy has been murdered. He wants to know why he hasn't been told, and it's because like they kind of some of the cops try to like keep that from him that work for like Theodore Roosevelt and stuff. So he's pissed and he takes all his men there as fast as he can. So Stevie alerts Cyrus and he alerts the others. Laszlo does not want to leave because he wants more pictures of the body, and they found a fingerprint. However, it's so dark that they're not sure that the picture will be able to take of the fingerprint. But they inform Laszlo that they have to leave now or they're all going to be in trouble, and so will Theodore Roosevelt and stuff. So as they're trying to make their way out, the cops are trying to make their way in, but they are trapped in the building. So they get some keys and then they flee on out of there. However, John has dropped his sketchbook. Now, Laszlo does something that is very unheard of. Remember when I say he yelled at Mary and got mad at her and all this other stuff? It wasn't just Mary. He got mad at John and he got mad at Sarah. See, he is upset that yet again another boy has been murdered, and he feels slightly guilty because of the last boy that was murdered. So he decides he's gonna read both Sarah and John like a book publicly to each other in a very blunt, rude kind of way. He asked John straight up, why do you love the company of strangers in bed? Like talking about those women that he goes to see in the brothel and everything. Then he goes to Sarah and's all like, what was it like when you found your father who committed suicide and everything? John is pissed off. Sarah, on the other hand, she has this thing about her. When she is uncomfortable or upset or feeling vulnerable, she stands completely still and just stares at people. She won't blink. She won't move her head. She won't say nothing. She just stares. But this time, a tear falls out her eye. Now, she did this once before when Captain Connor tried to like touch her and everything. He touched and found like an eyelash on her cheek. And then he's all like, blow it for good luck. And she just stares at him like stiff, like she can't move and everything. Now, he doesn't do anything to her, but he creeps her out. And she does the same thing with Laszlo and everything. She is so pissed and upset and distraught that she just stands there with a tear coming out her eye. She tries to play off that, like, you know, he's upset and everything, but John is not buying it. John cannot stand when Laszlo does this to people. And then that's when she asked about the whole Mary incident and stuff. Because she wants to know how these people work for Laszlo and when he treats them the way he does sometimes. Now, one thing Laszlo was able to determine about the dead body, because they go and see Joseph, aka Sally, at the Molly house, but Sally does not want to talk and runs off, but they corner him. And so when they corner him in a dark alley, we see like these little kids living up in like a hole and stuff like that. Man, things were so bad back then. And so Sally tells him straight up, you know, what all he remembers from what he heard and stuff like that, and how the dude is able like to fly but has like no wings and all this weird kind of mess and all this other stuff, and the type of boy that went to go like was his client and stuff like that. And Laszlo is able to determine that whoever this Silver Smile dude is, he knows these little boys, like he's a regular or something like that, or he knows them somehow, because there's no struggle whatsoever. He doesn't kill them in the spots that he leaves them in. He later takes them there, and they go there willingly and everything. And so that's how you see the boy in the first episode towards the end. He's just smiling and happy and everything. And then he said even when the killer is killing them, there is still no struggle because they are so comfortable with him that they're not really sure what's going on. See, the killer strangles them. And Laszlo tells John that, because John asks, why aren't they fighting if they're being strangled? And Laszlo tells him, some people find sexual satisfaction with strangulation. That's what he learned from that dominatrix woman and stuff. And that's why there's never no like struggle in like the snow or like where the boys are left at and stuff. And so now they must find whoever this regular is that knew these boys and stuff. So it's building up, and it's building up pretty quickly. Like, that's the one cool thing about this show. They don't drag on. I think this is only like 10 episodes in the season, and they get straight to the point and everything. Like, it's not like a CW show where they drag it out for like 20 episodes and stuff. Like, they get right to the point. And it's like there's no time for like filler. They give you a little character development here and there, but it's like minor. They mostly just stick straight to that of the story, that of like the murder mystery. And that's like a really good thing. Like, yeah, I have said before, I appreciate a good 20 to 22 episodes in a season. But now I'm starting to rethink that, mostly because I get it now when you stream stuff, it's kind of like, oh, 20 episodes. Like, I want to hurry and get to the next show, you know what I'm saying? And when it's a shorter season, it's kind of like, okay, that's better. However, shorter seasons only work when you get straight to the point. When you start pacing stuff out and going in all these different directions, some of that of Hawkeye, then it starts to get a little like nuts, you know what I'm saying? And you get kind of like taken out of the story. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.